How far will the New Orleans Saints make in the playoffs this year? Last year, they missed the playoffs for the first time in a little while, actually. It's been a while since the Saints have last missed the playoffs. Last year, they missed it by the skin of their teeth because of Jameis Winston being injured. I think they could have been a last spot in the wild card and probably could have pulled off some upsets in the playoffs. But I think now that Jameis Winston is back and the Saints have signed Andy Dalton as the backup, and now they moved Taysom Hill to tight end, how do you think this team is going to be this year? And as far as coaching styles go, Sean Payton is not going to be there this year either. So how do you think the Saints are going to fare out in this game this year, in this team this year without Sean Payton? There's a lot of good questions about this team, but I think that this is going to be a sneaky good team for the Saints this year. And I think with their schedule, I think they have a pretty nice schedule. So I think let's take the time to analyze the schedule. By the way, my name is James, and let's get started. As soon as I can pull up the schedule here real quick, we'll get going and rocking and rolling with the schedule. Okay, so here we go. We got the New Orleans Saints starting off their first week of the season, going on the road to Atlanta to play the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Saints should be able to win this game. I don't think the Falcons are any good this year. I think there's a lot of mismatches in this game. The defense on the Falcons side is not very good. The offense, the only players I would probably keep my eye on for and make sure that the cover, which I think the Saints defense shouldn't really have a problem doing, is mostly Kyle Pitts and Cordell Patterson. We still don't really know the whole idea as far as what is going to be going on with Calvin Ridley, but we're going to assume that as of right now, they're saying that he may be suspended for another season. So we'll see what happens there. But ultimately, I think the Saints should win on the road in week one. Then we go into week two. You're at home. You play the Tampa Bay Bucks. This game could really go either way. I know the Saints have had a lot of luck with beating Tom Brady, especially at home and especially on the road where they've really shut down Tom Brady and that offense. I do think this year, this is the year where Tom Brady finally does get his regular season revenge on the Saints. Therefore, I think I'm going to take them to win, beat you guys in week two at home. I just feel like the Bucks this year are going to have a lot of sour taste in their mouth from last year's NFC division game with the Rams. So I think they're going to take a lot of advantage. I think they're going to take a lot of that on their first few games of the season. So I think the Bucks are going to win that game in week two at home against the Saints. Then in week three, you've got the Saints going to Carolina to play the Panthers. Just like with the Falcons, I don't really expect anything big this year from the Panthers. I don't think they're really a really good team at all. There may be some upsides if Christian McCaffrey does stay healthy this year. And then their defense is pretty solid. I think the Carolina's defense is kind of underrated in my opinion, but I think with Sam Darnold at quarterback, I think that just is a lot of question marks and concerns about that. So I think I'm going to take the Panthers. I think I'm going to take the Saints to win that game in the third week of the season. Then week four, you've got the Minnesota Vikings traveling to the Dome to play the New Orleans Saints. I think the Vikings are a very good team this year. I think they're going to give Aaron Rodgers and the Packers a run for their money in that division, and I predict that in my when I did my video on the Vikings. I did say that the Vikings could have this opportunity to win the North this year, and I did talk a little bit about the previous games in the past with the Vikings and the Saints, especially when the Vikings have played in New Orleans. They've had some success there. And in Minnesota as well. I think this game could really go either way. I could really see the Saints winning this game, but ultimately I did pick the Vikings to win this game. I think right now I would trust Kirk Cousins over Jameis Winston in this type of football game. I think Kirk Cousins and company with that side of the offense of the Vikings has a lot of weapons that I think is going to be kind of tough for that defense of the Saints, although it is very, very good. I just think they're going to have some struggles with being able to keep up with Justin Jefferson and those guys. So I'm going to take the Vikings to win in week four. Then week 5, this is another game I could kind of see going either way, but I think it's in the Dome. I'm going to pick the Saints to beat the Seattle Seahawks at home. The Seattle Seahawks aren't really anything great this year. They have some pieces that are still good, but I think where they're really lagging in the most is their quarterback and Drew Lock. But we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the Seattle game, a Seattle prediction video. So right now, I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints to win that game. And then we go to week 6. We've got the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to the Dome to play the Saints on Sunday. I can see this game really going either way. I think this is kind of a trap game for the Bengals because I think that Saints defense is ultimately one of the best defenses. I believe that the Bengals might be able to might have some struggles with this year. I think the Saints defense is very good in terms of their defensive line and their secondary. But I do ultimately think at the end of the day, I think the Bengals defense I think they're a little underrated. I think they're going to give Jameis Winston and company some problems, especially I think also too with Andy Dalton too, even though I don't think he's really going to be playing that much this season because I think Jameis is right now he's named as the starter unless if something happens with Jameis with another injury and Andy Dalton plays. It's kind of a revenge game for Dalton in a way. I think Andy Dalton might have some ways of being able to help the Saints team beat the Cincinnati Bengals. But honestly, I think the Bengals are just better on offense. And I think as long as they're using Jamar Chase in this game and they use him effectively and T. Higgins and all the receivers, if they can take advantage of that, I think this Bengals do have that slight advantage. I think they might be able to win this game over the Saints. I think right now I would trust Joe Burrow over Jameis Winston to be able to perform to the best of his ability. Then in week 7, the Saints travel to Arizona to play the Cardinals on Thursday night. This game is another game that's kind of a trap game like the Vikings game and the Bengals game. I can kind of see this game going really either way. I think right now with what's going on with the Cardinals, I think there's a lot of drama going on with Kyler Murray. We're not exactly sure what's going on with DeAndre Hopkins either, if he's going to be there. May not make that much of a difference, but I think with the quarterback play and Kyler Murray, I think it does if he's not going to be playing. But I think he's going to be there. So, but I think the Saints defense is going to be able to pick up Kyler Murray's what he likes to do. He likes to scramble outside of the pocket. He's kind of like another younger version of Russell Wilson, but just nowhere as good as Russell Wilson is. I think he's going to be force some mistakes in this game. I think the Saints have enough juice in their defense. I think their defense is just too strong for Arizona. I think they're going to get Kyler Murray in trouble. I think Kyler Murray is going to have some problems in this game. So I'm going to pick the Saints to win that game. I think they just have a better fit for them. And I don't know if Kyler Murray really can pull off like a big game like this. I think sometimes when Kyler Murray does play in big games, like when they do play the Saints and they play the Packers and those kind of teams, I think that's where he kind of feels like the most erratic. So, but you never really know. I can see the Cardinals definitely winning this game because it is a Thursday night and they are at home. It's very possible that they can win this game. But I think the Saints ultimately right now, I think their defense kind of matches up better against the Kyler Murray in that offense. So I'm taking the Saints in that game to win. And then in week 8, you've got the Las Vegas Raiders going to New Orleans to play the Saints. This is another game that could be a trap game. I think it's going to be a very close game. I think Derek Carr could really have a good game in this one. But when I did my Las Vegas Raiders prediction video, I did pick the Saints for this game. And I think because they have the home field advantage and they're not playing in Las Vegas, I think the Saints are going to be very loud. I think the fans are going to be very loud in this game. And I think it's going to be very hard for Derek Carr and company to be able to pull off that win in the Dome. So I'm going to pick the Saints to win that one in kind of a slight upset, but not really. But I think it's kind of more of a sleeper game where I think the Saints might have some problems. So I'm going to take the Raiders. But I think ultimately this is a good game for both sides of both teams. But I think at the end of the day, I think the Saints defense is going to be a lot to handle. I think they can match up really well with some of Las Vegas receivers in Devontae Adams, or I think they could do pretty well with Hunter Renfrow. And I think that run game can really be stopped too by the Saints defensive line. So there's a lot of things that kind of go into this factor. So, but I think at the end of the day, I think the Saints can find a way to pull off that slight upset in a way or get the edge of the Raiders because of that home field advantage. And then in week 9, you've got the Baltimore Ravens on Monday night traveling to New Orleans. This is kind of a tricky game to really decide because I think while the Saints, I feel like right now, at least probably for this year, I think they're a slightly better team than the Ravens, but they both have very, very solid defenses. And I think the reason why I think the Ravens will end up winning this game on Monday night is mostly going to be because of that defense. I think that defense is really going to get to Jameis, and they might get some turnovers off of him through his interceptions. Because when Jameis does get under a lot of pressure, we've seen it when he played with the Bucs. He throws a lot of interceptions against teams that do get up. They do put a lot of pressure on him. So I definitely can see that happening. I think there are some games in here that might cost the Saints a playoff spot if Jameis isn't in his A game and he just throws interceptions left and right everywhere. So I think that's why I did pick the Ravens. I think that defense is just a little bit more elite, and I think they can get more pressure on Jameis than I think the defense can get on Lamar. So I picked the Ravens in week 9 to win that game. Then in week 10, you've got the Saints going to Heinz Field to play the Steelers. I don't really have that much hope in the Steelers this year. I don't think they're a terrible team, but I think the biggest things about them is mostly on that offense. I don't think their offensive line is really that special. I think the quarterback controversy a little bit with Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett is going to play a factor in this game. That's why I think the Saints will find a way and they can beat the Steelers at on the road, because I think, in my opinion, I feel like it's going to be very difficult for the Steelers to really face some really good defenses this year. And I think this Saints defense is it's a bit of a struggle for the Steelers. So I'm picking the Saints to win that one. Then in week 11, we've got a little bit of a rematch here. The Los Angeles Rams going to the New Orleans Saints. It's a little bit of a rematch. Last time these two teams have met, it was actually in a game in Los Angeles when Drew Brees got injured and Teddy Bridgewater came into the game. But I think this Rams team has given the Saints a lot of problems the last 2 times that they met, which was quite a while ago. And I think that kind of continues. I think the Rams are one of the best teams in the NFL and the NFC as well. So I think that does continue. I think the Rams are just a better team overall. I don't see very many teams being able to beat the Rams this year. Although I could be wrong. I really could be wrong. But I do think, if anything, I do think if there's one thing that might get the Rams going is if this defense can get to Matthew Stafford and force interceptions. We've seen that happen last year with Stafford. He did get some erratic. He kind of reverted back to his Detroit Lion days where he was throwing interceptions. He was getting turnovers, fumbling the ball, and getting very erratic under pressure. So I think if the Saints do win that game, it's mostly going to be on the defense. But I think as long as him and Cooper Kupp can figure out ways to go ahead and dice up the Saints defense, I think that's very possible. So I'm taking the Rams to win that one in week 11. Then in week 12, this is kind of an interesting matchup. I can really see this game going either way. I think Kyle Shanahan's defense matches up very well. I think they can get a lot of pressure on the Saints offense, especially the fact that since this defense that Kyle Shanahan is facing going up against it also matches up very well with the offensive side of the ball too. But ultimately at the end of the game, I think the coaching kind of does play a little bit of a factor here. I think Kyle Shanahan is a very, very good defensive coach. I think he can find ways, like with the Ravens and some of these defensive teams that the Saints face this year. I think the 49ers will outcoach the Saints, and I think they can get the Jameis and be able to get some turnovers in that game. I think Trey Lance, if he's playing at this point, I don't know if it's either him or Jimmy Garoppolo, but I think at that point in the season, I think the offense will start to revert back to what it was a year ago with that run game. So I think the 49ers do have a good chance to beat the Saints in San Francisco. I definitely could see the Saints winning this game, though, as well, because I think the Saints offense matches very well with the 49ers defense. But I also think the Saints defense also does pretty well against the run, and they could be able to stop Debo and Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo in doing the things that they like doing. So I'm going to take the 49ers to win that game. And then we're going to look at week 11. We got the New Orleans Saints traveling to Tampa. I'm picking the Saints to win in Tampa, giving Tampa Bay their first loss of the season, I believe. This is a Monday night game. The Saints have owned Tom Brady the last 4 times that they've faced in the regular season, especially when they play Tom Brady in Tampa. I don't know what it is. I don't know why they play great defense against him, but whatever they're doing seems to work. And I do think it's going to be very hard for Brady to sweep this team, and let alone even trying to win one game against them this year. So ultimately, I am picking the Saints to win that game on Monday night. And then we're looking into the bye week in week 14. And so you've got a 7-6 record. So you're kind of getting down to the end of the rope here. You might be trying to battle out for a playoff spot. So let's take a look at the last 4 weeks here of what the Saints do have in store. So they've got the Falcons again, who will also be coming off of a bye week as well. The Saints should sweep the Falcons this year. I don't really have a lot of hope in the Falcons, as much as I really hate to say that, but I think the Falcons are definitely going to be on the spiral this year. I think downward, at least. I think the Falcons are in a total rebuild with both sides of the ball. So they don't really have a lot that really scares you. I think the Saints defense is really going to get to if Marcus Mariota is playing at that point in the season, or if it's Ritter that's playing in place of him. So I'm going to take the Saints to win that game. Then this is an interesting game. You've got the Saints at the Cleveland Browns. If this was in the Superdome, I do believe that the Saints would win this game. However, it's in Cleveland. Cleveland is also a very tough place to play too. Deshaun Watson is probably going to be playing at this point in the season. I'm going to pick the Browns to win this game. I think the Browns run game, I think if they run the ball enough and Deshaun Watson can play back to like his elite style when he played with the Houston Texans, the Browns can win that game. If not, then if the Saints defense does get to Deshaun Watson and they stop the run game well, I think the Saints could win that game though too. But I ultimately, at the end of the day, I think I would trust Deshaun Watson in that offense in the run game over Jameis Winston and his running game with Alvin Kamara. I would believe. I think Alvin Kamara is going to be like the biggest key to their offense this year. I think Jameis may help out in some ways in which the coaching staff would want him to do. But ultimately, it's kind of hard to tell because I think once one team is running the ball over and over again, it tires out the defense. And I think the Browns love to run the ball. So I think that's really going to be a hard thing for the Saints all game long to do that. So I'm taking the Browns to win in week 16. Then you've got the Saints. They're going to Philly. I think the last 2 years, it was kind of a fluke, if you know what I mean. I think the Eagles the last 2 years weren't really the best team for them. But I think Jalen Hurts, for whatever reason, always puts up points against the Saints secondary and defense. But I think the Saints do get their revenge this year. I think the Saints do have a very good opportunity and taking advantage of the Eagles defense because I don't think their defense is as good as people want them to be. So I think at the end of the day, I think I would want to see the Saints win that game over the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they do get their revenge game finally against them after losing to them 2 years in a row. Then you've got the last game. You got the Carolina Panthers playing the New Orleans Saints, depending on where the Saints line up in the division and where they line up on the playoff side of things. I can honestly see the Carolina Panthers trying to do somewhat of an upset, but at the end of the day, I think the Saints are just a better team, and no matter really who is at quarterback against the Carolina Panthers, I think it's not really going to matter much. I think they're going to struggle against the Saints either way. I'm taking the Saints to win that final game. Just assuming that they do play everybody and they don't, and they need to play for that last spot of the playoffs. So ultimately, at the end of the day, I think the New Orleans Saints do get to a 10-7 record. I think it's a very good chance for them to get themselves back into the playoffs. I think they have a very good shot of getting back into the playoffs. Um, and I think they could be a dangerous team though this year. I think this is a team in the NFC along with the 49ers as well that I think they could be sleeper teams this year. A lot of teams don't really give them enough credit for what they do. I think they both have real I think the Saints have really good coaching staff. They have a great roster. Um, I think the biggest question marks really is around the quarterback situation with Jameis Winston, but I think Jameis Winston does. I think with this coaching staff, I think they've done a good job the last couple of years, especially last year with the amount of games that he was able to play. I think they did a good job with containing to what he does best in, and I think that's how he's going to succeed in this on this team if they can use him effectively and use him to the strengths of what he is good at. And there is a lot of upside with Jameis. He has a great arm. I think the biggest problem for him is just not being able to turn the ball over. And we've seen that happen before when he played in Tampa, and it was not very pretty in his last season with throwing, I think it was like 33 touchdowns to 30 interceptions. So it wasn't very pretty for him in his last season there. But I think the Saints have him figured out now. I think they can use him conservatively, and I think he does help this Saints team be as good as they really can be. So 10-7 for the Saints, 5-1 in the division. I think this is a good record for them personally. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you think they'll be around where they were a year ago? Do you think they improved from last year? Or do you think they kind of go down the spiral? Just let me know in the comments down below. And then for our next game, we'll do the Carolina Panthers. So I hope you all stick around for that.